Hey everybody, welcome back to Bit About Crypto. I'm David James, the Job Whisperer, and this is the Bit About Crypto show where we talk all things crypto, NFT, blockchain, so the listeners out there can learn more and more, and we bring on interesting guests. But speaking of interesting, I've got my co-host and partner, David Hampton, the Robo-Recruiter. How are you, David?
I'm doing very well. Doing very well. A lot of things going on in the world today.
Yeah, a lot of things are going on in our firm, right?
Yeah.
So, and we just want to say thank you to everybody, all the people who actually have heard the podcast and want to be candidates. I appreciate your courage. You know, a lot of you said, hey, I don't know if anyone will hire me. And it's like, that's not true at all, right? Because this crypto space is passion over pedigree, right? And I'm just going to go back to the analogy of Southwest. Southwest hires based on attitude and then places you based on aptitude. And so if you are someone who wants to repurpose your life, you might be in the crypto space right now, or you want to repurpose your life into crypto or blockchain or something in that area, then you need to contact me, okay? Because that's the side of that's the wheelhouse that I control at Blockchain Recruiters. And you can reach me at, we'll start with Twitter, right? I'm the BTC Recruiter, right? If you want me on Twitter, or what you can do is you can actually just send me an email, davidj@blockchainrecruiters.net. Make sure it's net, because if you don't do net, then you won't be caught in my net. And remember, it's not who you know, it's who I know. If you have a blockchain or a crypto project and you need people for that, then you need to actually talk to Robo-Recruiter. And I'll let him tell you how to get a hold of himself.
On Twitter, you can get me at BC Robo-Recruiter. And my email is dave@blockchainrecruiters.net.
Yeah, don't forget the net. And so what we had been doing on this show is we were saying, hey, I've got this position, I've got that position, and this is who's hiring. That's just too many of them now. We have too many buckets and not enough water. All right. So if you are in the blockchain space or want to be in the blockchain space, community manager, business development, auctioneer,
blockchain engineer,
anything, CTO,
Web3 CTO, C-suite.
If you actually can program right in Web3
or JavaScript. I mean, there's some interesting companies using JavaScript to. Right,
but here's the deal. See, people say to us, hey, we want a CTO, and we want somebody who actually has done layer 1 but can program in Web3. Right, but we want somebody who can actually blockchain and program, but is also be the CTO.
And manage people and lead people.
Yeah, but here's what I'm going to say. If you actually have enough of a vision on how something needs to be done, if you're more of the programmer with an idea and you can roll others, you will make a good CTO. This whole idea of someone with 30 years experience, that's over, right? Because those people have come from an archaic realm. I'm not saying they're not all good because a lot of them have repurposed themselves. I mean, thank God, me at my age, I repurposed myself. And, I've been in blockchain and Bitcoin since 2013. So I'm one of the very few boomers that it's actually a badge of pride that I'm actually not losing as much intelligence as I'm actually losing.
We can hear that.
Wait, what?
We can hear that pride.
Is it time for me to take a pill? Go to bed?
Which pill are you going to take now?
The one that reminds me to take the other pill.
The blue one?
No, I take the red one to remind me to take the blue one so I sleep better and my diabetes. No, I don't have any of that. Anyhow, so that's that. One of the things, David, I've noticed about when we talk to these new entrepreneurs in the blockchain space, they're critical thinkers. You agree with that?
Indeed.
Yeah. And when you think of lawyers, right? You got a brother who's a lawyer. You had thought about law school, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what kind of critical thinking do I want to actually?
A lot of deductive reasoning.
Right. And I come from a long line of lawyers, and I've always thought like a lawyer. At the time, that didn't go fast enough for me. You're going to have to edit that out.
Not a chance.
That didn't go fast enough for me, right? So I just decided I wanted to go. I was a little bit too much of a hurry when I was younger. And as you know, I had a past playing poker, right? Mm-hmm. And, today's guest, he's both. And he's way more successful as a poker player than I was. I was a cash player. But anyhow, with no further ado, and he actually has repurposed himself visionarily in the NFT crypto space. With no further ado, let's welcome Dutch Boyd.
It's really great to be on here, Dave and Dave. Thanks for having me. And when you say repurpose, that's exactly, I can relate to that. That's exactly what I did this last year. I was working as an insurance defense attorney for a big law firm. And then NFTs came along, and like you, I've been in crypto since about 2013. I remember selling my first dip at about $10 Bitcoin, but NFTs to me kind of feels like rewinding the clock, and it's like the ship came back, and I just told myself I'm not missing it this time. And I think not that I missed it the first time. I don't want to I did okay in crypto, but
but nobody went as deep as then because we know more now, right? It's like if I'd only done X word.
Well, it's also just you get into the situation where it doesn't matter how heavy of an allocation you put into crypto at the time when it 10x's and 20x's. It's just irresponsible to have 98% of your net worth in the cryptocurrency.
I didn't do that on purpose. It started at 5%.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you keep on rebalancing and you sell all the way up. And then you feel like an idiot when you start doing the numbers and think, oh, wow, if I would have just held that 200 Bitcoin, I'm not having to even pull out a calculator again, So this last year, repurposing, that's exactly what happened because, around June, July, finding myself, running cases on the defense side for insurance companies. I'd kind of moved away from the poker career and tried to grow up for a better, for lack of a better word. I started a family pretty recently, and just the health plan for poker players is pretty bad.
Well, on so many levels. So let's just talk about poker for a second, since you and I both had that in common. As a cash player, I was really successful. I don't have a lot of. I've got places and cashes at the World Series and the Hall of Fame. Back we used to have the Hall of Fame, and of course, winning at the bike and the commerce, all that kind of stuff. But what I realized is that that poker, and I'm only speaking for me. I'm not. I was making so much money, but it's a soulless life for me. And no matter how much money I had, it was always transitory, right? Because I'm always looking at my bankroll in the safe, right? And it's like, no, I can't spend this because I need that in case I have a slip. And it's not life. It's just this perpetuation of fear. And then back then when I was playing, right, in the late 80s and 90s, right? And I tell people I was playing when the big poker tournament was at the Normandy Casino, and the biggest buy-in they had was $500, and I played with Mike Sexton back then. That's how old I go. But you just realize it's now there are people trying to rob you of your cash, and you need to have a gun, and there's a game in Canada, so you need to get a gun in Canada. It's just the insanity that went for me in walking out of the Binion's Horseshoe, realizing I haven't seen sunlight in 3 weeks. For me, I'm only speaking for me. It's just contrarian, and people are really surprised when they say, "Hey, did you hear about this or you hear about this?" I go, "Nope, I just don't engage anymore." I had to do that, and I know by the look on your face, at some root level, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
maybe not in your life, but you've seen there are others that are slaves to this.
So David, what you just described hits pretty close to home. There's definitely a difference when you look at poker players. I think there's a big difference between cash game players and tournament players. Between the two, they both kind of turn into a grind. They both completely ruin you for money. The money's better for cash games. Cash game specialists. It's also a lot more stable. But I think that one of the big differences is where the money comes from, right? With cash game players, you're always just looking for easy spots where you can maximize your EV, maximize your hourly rate, and you find a good game, you never leave. If you find the one guy who's going to just keep on dumping and dumping and dumping, you live there.
You just want to sit to the left of him.
Exactly.
I'll take that seat when it comes open.
And there's room for a lot of guys like that here in Vegas on the Strip, because this Strip, is just Las Vegas is a beautiful town with just basically a conveyor belt of fresh tourist money, and a lot of it ends up right there at the 2-5 at the Bellagio or the Wynn, and it's not that hard to train yourself to be able to walk into a poker room, look at a 2-5 game, recognize who you don't know, look at a Rolex on a 1-3 or 2-5 player and say, this is the spot. Lots of, just like some alpha for poker players looking for a game. Learn from 20 years doing it. You look for the loud games. You look for you look for alcohol on the table. You look for expensive watches.
Can I get an amen?
Amen.
And you don't challenge yourself as a cash game player. You look for the easy spot. You're not trying to prove to the world anything. You're just trying to make more than you could in a normal grind.
And one thing I know he knows this. You're looking for lots of calls, right? You're looking for like 5 people in, right, on the flop, even with the raise.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So that's more important than any of those other things. Those other things help.
And
right?
anytime somebody complains about hands like aces getting cracked and it being a bad game because everybody calls you, how can you win with aces when you have 5 people calling you pre-flop? It's like, okay, this is the game to be in because this guy just fundamentally misses the point.
I'll take my chances.
And like one thing that kind of helps as a poker player, because I was doing it for 20 years, and one thing that really kind of helps is realizing that when you win a hand with aces, you're actually running above expectation. You're the one getting lucky.
Correct. Unless your head's up.
Even when your head's up.
Yeah, it's 80% that you'll win heads up.
That's right.
But
so when you win and you get 100% of the pot, you're getting luckier than you're supposed to be because you're only supposed to be getting 80% of it.
That's right.
And I think that...
So the money line is like 125. If you think about,
I never got into I never degened into the sports side of things. So that the like equating percentages to like odds just doesn't come.
All sports is a red and black flop. That's all sports are. It's a red and black flop, right? And you've just talked, but I think we're talking above our audience now. But go ahead.
So poker kind of ruins you for money. It's really hard to go from the relatively easy money of sitting down at a poker table and the hours just kind of melt away.
But also one of the things I noticed, and this was for me, and I believe for me in my hustle, and I'm glad it happened, TV killed it for me, right? Because these people start knowing who you are, and it doesn't help, right? Then people start gunning after you, and I know you can speak to this, but I looked around and I saw the people that were dominating this were in their 30s and 40s. Right, you got you got some people like the Tom McAvoys of the world, and et cetera, et cetera. They're tried and true, but they're the exception, not the rule. But I learned that there are bold poker players and there are old poker players, but there are no old bold poker players.
Very few. You can count them on one hand.
Yeah.
So cash games versus tournaments. You got the tournament poker players who are. They don't get to look for the soft spot at the table. They, instead they're kind of looking for a soft field of the whole tournament as in its entirety. But then you start getting to the end, and you really have no choice but to go
gamble
against people who are
better
than you. And that's for me. That was always kind of the fun in poker was playing at the highest elite level that you could find. And playing against people who, school you from time to time. And, I liked poker quite a bit. It was tournament poker was really good when I started getting in. The television, the televised hole cards and everything had just started. ESPN just started bringing in the cameras. In my first World Series of Poker main event, I went really deep, and that was the 2003 Moneymaker year.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So I was sharing with my partner about this. I said I was kind of close to Mansour Matulabi, right? I don't know if he's still on the snooker. Do you ever see him Mansour around anymore?
I've never seen him.
Okay, but you know who he is. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And
for your audience, he was one of the WSOP main event champions.
Yeah, I think in '94, about that area.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. And he said to me, he said, the key is you got to get lucky, right? And when I think of Chris Moneymaker, and I'm not trying to throw any shade, or even Kevin McBride, who lost to Scotty, right? It's like he's an okay player that just ran luck, because if he was anything, you would see more of him, right? And that was just that one thing. And you very much could have been Moneymaker that year, right? Because I was talking to David about it, because I know that the hand you went out on, you had pocket threes, and the flop comes 2-5-9. Right, he has pocket threes, and the flop comes 2-5-9. He checks, and then you move all in. It's like how can you make that call?
You had king queen is what David said.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm just I even back to that. It's like how can you make that call? I mean, I guess it's just I feel for you, brother, because you're not supposed to make that call.
Well, it was the right call. You know,
It certainly was. Now, wasn't it?
And I think about that hand a lot.
Well, that's the,
You know?
so for our audience. That's the thing about the World Series of Poker, the main event for poker players. If you actually get busted out of that tournament, which everybody does except for one, if you bust out of that tournament, you have an entire year to think about it. Now, this is before they've had the whole SOW, the World Poker Tour, and all these things. But it's like, and actually Jennifer Harmon, she's the one who said it to me. She says that tournament is the one where you actually have the whole year to think about what you did wrong. And as you were talking about, as a lawyer, you're starting to think about, well, why am I doing this and why am I doing that? Wisdom doesn't come from easy things. Wisdom comes from these pains. And I've always said this: if you want to know who the best ball maker is, look for the guy who's missing a few fingers. Right? That's the guy to ask how to make a bomb. Him, not the guy with the manicure. Right?
That's an interesting way of looking at it. I don't know a lot about bomb making, but I agree. I mean, like, you don't really know somebody, including yourself, until you've met success, failure, and time. And you definitely learn a lot more from the failures. You know, the nice thing about winning a tournament is you don't have to think about what you did wrong. You don't have to think about the times you got lucky. And
no, you didn't get lucky. You played well.
Right.
No. But you understand. We've all no. I was feeling it. We've all had that.
Well, that's what's interesting about poker, right? And that's you've always made this analogy about poker and recruiting. Like, I mean, in recruiting, like you feel like the person should take it, and all of a sudden the candidate says, "I'm not going to take it," and you're like, "What?" And I can relate, because you made the right call based on the numbers and everything. I understand it, conceptually, but I don't really play. But you made the right call based on everything you knew of the data, right? And
well, what I would say is I made the decision that felt right at the time. You know, specifically with Moneymaker, I mean, I made the wrong call. I underestimated him. I looked at this guy and thought, there's no way. We're 16, 15 left in the WSOP main event. There's no way he's going to call off his whole stack with what I think he has, which is a small pocket pair or
ace five or ace five.
You know, there's no way he's going to call off his whole stack and go back to Tennessee, you know, and go back to his accounting job and say that was my shot, and that's how I went out. I really kind of underestimated him, you know, because when I looked at him, I thought, okay, this guy is just going to try to ladder up. He's looking at $1 million for third place, and $1.5 million for second, or whatever it is.
Which is life-changing for him at the time.
It's life-changing for everybody. You know, the money jumps at that point, you know, they're fortunes, you know, they're life savings for the difference between 9th and 8th, you know, and, you know, you look around the room and you see real legends. I mean, Phil Ivey was right there with us, and David Singer, and Amir Vahidi, and Sammy Farah, and like real solid players, you know, who already had built a reputation. I mean, everyone already knew Phil Ivey was the best, you know. So I looked at Moneymaker and I underestimated him. I thought, there's no way he's going to put his whole tournament life on the line here and then go back with a quaint little story about how some nobody knocked him out of the WSOP. He's going to fold, and he's going to ladder up, and he's going to go out in 5th or 6th place. And his life is going to change because he's going to have...
Well, that's what I'd have done, but then I think about it differently. But I do want to say this, and there's a reason I asked, and I'm glad this conversation is going so organic as it has, but there's a reason that as far as recruiting in poker, right? Recruiting, the key to poker is good starting hands. And when someone says, hey, what's it take to get good at poker? I said, learn how to fold. And that's all the advice I get them. All right? If you haven't learned how to fold, then go away.
It's like saying no to
business. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then keep playing more hands, right? So learn how to fold, and I walk away, because I'm not going to like give you a studio on how to play ace king versus a pair of nines. It's just I'm not. I had to pay to learn, but even right now, I don't want to go there emotionally. But the thing is, it's starting hands, right? Starting hands with candidates, right? Candidates and clients. And that's why as we repurpose ourselves, the recruiting firm, we say no a lot.
Right.
Right. And I explained this to John Orlando. I said the key to winning at the tournament that Dutch is talking about, most players are looking for reasons to play, right? You need to be looking for reasons not to play. It needs to be really, really boring.
Right.
But with that actually having been said, you take starting hands and candidates. This is a good candidate, good attitude, good willingness, good skills. And it's like you got aces and all of a sudden you got 5 callers. All of a sudden there's king, king, queen, queen, right? That starting hand is no longer good. So when the candidate's attitude changes, when like the wife isn't signing on for it or they've got another offer, then
walk
you
away.
fold.
You just walk away.
Learn to fold.
Yep.
Right. But the thing about it is poker players, real analytical, right? Because they're thinking about what is the price I'm getting for this risk? And that's the same thing as it relates to crypto. And I would love talking to you. We could go on and on about poker. You're just so engaging, right? But it's just people, they ask me, hey, did I know you? And it's like, no, but I knew of you. Right, because at that time, I had just made a movie called The Big Blind, and Scotty Wynn, Jennifer Harmon, and Daniel Negreanu were in it. I mean, I call it my $1 million drink coaster because it's basically it cost me $1 million. The DVD is free, but you put the drink on the case. So, but my exit had come right when you were actually showing up for that. But so, talk about the analytical way that someone looks at poker, starting hands, like projects, and you saw crypto.
So poker really does get you ready for crypto.
How so?
There's a lot of things about the poker mindset that you can, that kind of is just perfectly tailored for crypto and NFT trading, I would say specifically. One thing, the swings. Any poker player.
Talk about the swings, please.
Any poker player, especially tournament poker players, understand that at some point in your career you get divorced from money, and you look at a 5 or even 6-figure downswing or upswing, and you don't feel it the same way anymore. A big part of being successful in poker is removing yourself from results. You have to look at it as expected value. And if you win or lose, it doesn't matter. It's how you played the hand and if you played it well, and that's what you focus on. And you don't think about, I just lost $80,000 on that hand. And when people talk about removing themselves from results, it's not just bad results. You also, to be successful in poker, you have to remove yourself from the positive results. And this is a tougher thing to do.
Chirping chips.
It's a tougher thing to exactly.
Tell them about chirping chips.
That's like you've always said this. Recruiting is the highest of the high and lowest of the lows. So what you're talking about is what you're describing to me is what that is. Like you can't. Like you win big, all right. You lose big, all right. Let's stay right here, kind of thing.
In poker, we have something that we call tilt. And everybody looks at tilt as, that's what happens when you're losing. But it's also what happens when you're winning. It's also what happens when things are going really well. You have a $450,000 tournament score, and you think, now I don't have to work for 2 years. But it doesn't work that way. After a while, you realize that you can't look at results. Part of divorcing yourself from that is divorcing yourself from the big wins, just like the big losses. Mm-hmm. And it's you just kind of look at it as an entirety. Well,
just for the audience, I want everybody to know that I've never lost with aces, and I've never been on tilt. But I'm trying to understand this concept you're speaking of.
So, you've been running really good. You've probably never lost a dime in crypto either on some crappy meme coin or.
Nope, I've always bought low and sold high. I'm amazing.
That's why we tune in, So
keep going, Dutch. I love you.
That mindset gets you ready. You can pull out your CoinMarketCap app and you can see. Recently, this week has just been a bloodbath. And I think people who are kind of in a normal, maybe healthy mental framework for most of life, they're going to look at something like that and see, a year's salary down the drain in one day, and it's just going to crush them. They're going to flee. They're going to get out, or they're going to look at a huge upswing, more than they made in the last couple of months, and they're going to think, I can quit my job, And poker gets you divorced from the reality of the money
and the reality of life sometimes. We got to talk about this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For one thing, you stop looking at money as having Poker, you start developing unhealthy attitudes towards money. You stop looking at it in terms of what it can buy. And
Like giving the gal at the cage $100.
Absolutely. It's a tool, and then and it means nothing. And then you also start, in a weird way, kind of merging your self worth with your bankroll.
Yes.
And so it becomes like a tool for self-validation, but not. You stop thinking about what it can actually buy, because if you do, you
won't behave that way.
Yeah. So it's a tool to increase in stakes, and it's a way to measure how you're doing, and that's as counterintuitive and I would actually argue unhealthy of an attitude that is towards money. It lends itself really well to trading crypto, trading NFTs, and the other thing about NFTs specifically that I think works really well with tournament poker is with tournament poker you have a lot of misses for every one really good score. As a tournament poker player, it's not like cash games, because cash games,
it's like being a baseball player that's got a 4% batting average.
Yeah, pretty much.
If you're Hall of Fame, remember Hall of Fame is 1 out of 3.
Yeah, but we're talking poker. You're a mad money winner if you're like cash 4% of the time.
I think in the money
higher.
percentage, is going to be about 20% for a real solid winning tournament.
I was compared to baseball. I was taking like the third, like 33% is Hall of Fame for baseball. So it's got to be 4% for.
But with tournament poker, in the money just means you get your money back. Most of the time,
yes, good
especially
point.
with the deeper fields, which is what you're generally playing as a tournament pro, because those are the softer fields. You're looking at a very small percent, sometimes sub 1%, that you'll actually win.
Yeah, the yield is it's a low return, right? That's what you're saying. It's a low yielding return.
I would say like high variance.
Yeah, it depends.
So, it's that kind of that specifically gets you ready for NFTs, because with NFT drops, you'll mint 10 projects, and the majority of these NFT projects are end up results wise to be losers. And I don't mean to call NFT projects and the teams behind them losers.
It's the same thing as cryptocurrencies, ICOs, right? These guys can't all win. Same thing with Facebook, MySpace. I mean, it's Avis Hertz. It's just the natural Darwin law of competition, right?
Sure.
And whatever's going to take the greatest Metcalf effect network, it's going to be the winner. And so by default, that's a loser. So
Yep.
I'm not taking that you're saying.
Yeah, and then that begs the question: like, how do you pick winners? Out of this NFT space. That's the. I mean, is there like a formula for picking the winners? Or is there?
Yeah. Well, before you get to that, I wanted to weave this in. You answer this any way you want. I was going to ask you. It's like, okay, so let's talk about taking your analytical mind, your lawyer, and your poker playing ability, and how you were looking at cryptocurrency before the NFTs. How you were looking at that, trading versus holding, et cetera, et cetera. I believe there's only two people that make money, hodlers and exchanges. But as far as cryptocurrency, I'm not talking about NFTs.
With cryptocurrency, I wasn't really a big trader. I just pretty much stuck with Bitcoin for a long time, selling all the way up, but then gradually moved over to Ethereum. The smart contract idea, it took a little while to grok, but after I did, I realized that Ethereum is actually really cool what you can do with it. Mm-hmm. Bitcoin, not so much. Bitcoin, what can you do with it? It started out as a way to permissionlessly transfer value, but now it's not. Now it's become a way to store value. And that's a big distinction. You can't send your buddy $5 in Bitcoin anymore.
Well, it's silly to do so, right? It's like bartering a piece of land, right? You have 5 acres, and you're like, here's a square footage of 100 square feet.
And
it's silly.
I've been in long enough, as you have, that we remember when Bitcoin wasn't something that you were going to store. It was something that you were going to use and spend. I got into Bitcoin primarily because my friend here in Vegas, a guy named Brian Micon, started an online poker site using Bitcoin. It was called Seals with Clubs, and
I remember
it had some great games, and he was trying to promote it by giving away Bitcoin. He would give away a Bitcoin to anybody who would sign up, and super soft tables, and they had mixed games, which I loved, and I just kind of went down the rabbit hole, and then that was kind of the time of Silk Road as well, and when Silk Road got shut down, that's when I sold most of my Bitcoin, because I thought, well, that was it. The whole value proposition here is to be able to use it for drugs and gambling. And now they just shut down the drug side of it. It's going to crash. It didn't. Instead, it kind of matured and became something else. Mm-hmm. But, when I first got, my first Bitcoin was to spend, not to hold. And I feel like that was the attitude back then, was this is not a store of value. It's a way to transfer value. And now you look at Bitcoin and it just doesn't work for that anymore. You have to use something, you have to use a different coin where the transaction fees are fractions of a cent. You're never going to have micropayments in Bitcoin. I mean, maybe one day down the line
we will if we start talking in Satoshis. Don't you think?
Well, you still have the gas fee, which with Bitcoin is just kind of
it is prohibitive. I get that.
Well, it's nothing is more prohibitive this week or this month than the gas fees of Ethereum, and that's why I know that Richard Hart's doing this thing called Pulse Chain. Do you know anything about that?
I don't. Is this a layer 2 solution or a completely different layer 1?
No, he's making it's layer 1. He's making a copy of the entire. He's a hard fork of the Ethereum network.
Yeah, I'm not an Ethereum maximalist, just like I wasn't a Bitcoin maximalist.
Well, I tell people I'm a coinosexual. I'm attracted to multiple coins.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. I'm going to use that. I'm actually going to tell people I invented that term.
You know what? you may. For one black chick, every time you say it. No, if you want to
we'll license it to you, okay?
Yeah. No, dude, I'm already cutting the deal. For every time you say it, it's like, oh, David James a black chip. So,
I think that there's some really good smart alternatives to Ethereum. You got Solana for one. You got Tezos. You got Avalanche. There's other layer 1s and Pulse. I don't know a lot about it, but I assume that it's smart contract capable.
Same guy that did Hex.
Probably NFT native on the chain. I don't know how those are going to play out. But I think there's room for a lot of different cryptos. But so when it comes to NFTs, what really got me into Ethereum and to move the holdings over to Ethereum was the idea of these smart contracts and actually having utility. The first NFT I ever bought was ENS. It was these domain names. I was really big into domain names when it was .com, .net. And
you and Michael Saylor.
Yeah, and the idea of having a decentralized naming service just seemed like a no-brainer. This is something that we're going to need for Web3 and decentralized, the decentralized internet, the future. So I picked up a whole bunch of them, and those are NFTs. I don't think that they were the first NFTs, but they were close.
Kind of like Unstoppable Domains.
Yeah, I mean, Unstoppable Domains was basically a fork of ENS and a centralized fork.
A centralized fork. Touche.
But there's a lot of benefits that Unstoppable Domains has over ENS. I mean, for one, you never with ENS, it's like the .coms where you never actually own it. You're always just renewing it.
I want to divert the conversation to two things. I want your strategy for buying, picking NFTs as it relates to poker. And of course, I don't want to run out of runway here without talking about your project. No, we got plenty. I just, so let's go back to, I'm sorry, my enthusiasm is getting the best of me. So
that never happens.
Yeah. Usually Dave does all the talking.
ENS is what really got me into NFTs, because ENS is an ERC 721 NFT. It was one of the first ones, but I do think punks were Actually, I don't even think punks were in ERC 721, but we're kind of getting into the weeds there, and no one cares, But they were giving away punks, and they were giving away ENS names, and I chose ENS names over punks, and I didn't get the whole idea of why would you want a JPEG. Why would you want to do that? Right. I was still in the.
I don't get it either. Like that's the thing is
I get it now.
Well, tell the audience. School David.
I will. I'm glad that we had this conversation.
Yeah,
my goal is to convert you, convert you into an NFT believer, because it took me a long time to get it. I understood NFTs as far as utility goes, and the ENS, that was utility. When you could register. Which I did. When it really sunk in was when I registered highscore.eth. and I wrote a 1-page React app for tic-tac-toe and deployed it on the IPFS. And there it was. You could connect to it with the Brave browser, a website where you could go and play tic-tac-toe. And I realized no one can take this down. I mean, that's amazing. It's amazing. And coming from a poker background where my whole livelihood was just erased overnight when there was, when some politicians decided, you know what, maybe we shouldn't let people play online poker. You know, they took down the sites overnight, and one day I didn't have to worry about money, and the next day I was basically
flat
out of
broke.
a job.
Right.
And
your money was confiscated temporarily.
Yeah, and it completely affected the industry. And I realized then that, you know, there's a need for permissionless currency. You know, I mean, that's one of the things that got me attracted to Bitcoin.
Right.
But it also made me realize there's a need for a censorship-proof or at least resistant internet structure. And that's what ENS is. I had high score up there, and yeah, it was just a tic-tac-toe game, but nobody could take it down. And that was just like, wow, this is really interesting because it doesn't have to be a tic-tac-toe. This could be a sports book. You know, I could have used sportsbook.eth and popped up a peer-to-peer sports betting exchange, and no one would be able to just take it down from the domain level. No one could take it down from the hosting level because it's on IPFS. It's not hosted anywhere. And that's when I really started seeing the utility of these NFTs and kind of the future of decentralization, what it really means. And it's a little bit troubling too. I mean, like, you know, we don't really want to live in a world where you can go to assassinate.eth, you know, or have like a murder DAO.
Yeah.
You know, there's lots of bad.
And you find your name down there, like there's 7 contracts for your death.
Yeah, you know, and like there's a lot of bad stuff on the internet that should be taken down.
I don't see the idea as bad now that I'm thinking about it. No.
But I mean, like, you know, for better or worse, when you look at crypto and you look at, you know, the origins of what we're doing here, it was created by these types of ultra libertarians who, you know, crypto anarchists who, you know, are looking for a way to make sure that China can't take down Google. And that's something that kind of appeals to me. So that's how I got into NFTs, and I was not into punks or this idea of, you know, art as NFTs.
Right.
When Nifty Gateway started, you know, selling Beeples, and they were giving away punks for literally nothing, I didn't care, and I didn't want one. I focused on ENS, focused on utility, and focused on building stuff. And it took a long time to realize that that was the wrong view. You know, I mean, I don't understand why I didn't see it earlier, because as a kid, I was all about collecting Magic cards and baseball cards, and run around to baseball conventions and go on eBay and sell Magic cards, you know, and it's just like, I've always loved that idea of collecting. So the idea that you don't really need a physical thing to collect, that should have sunk in earlier.
Well, hold on a second. I have trouble explaining this. I had somebody say to me that all the NFTs it's trading collectibles, trading cards, it's lifestyle, pretty girls, models, and sports memorabilia and art. Mm-hmm. And so basically, all we are is now the world is just this big art studio. Somebody's got to be the loser in that deal. I was having a hard time explaining that based on your medical records or your insurance history as an NFT or your transcript.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, talking about those kind of utility cases for NFTs, you don't really need to sell that. You look at them and say, look, you have a smartphone, you know, an iPhone, not, you know, a $30 Android ripoff. You didn't get all your clothes at Goodwill, and you don't drive a Fiat. You know, I mean, like all of these things are just like
don't use that word.
All these things are physical representations of self-expression and you know, owning things.
Yes.
And, you know, like if that's just who we are. You know, I mean, we're evolved to want to collect and play status games. And you know, I was never one to really, you know, like go out and try to impress people by wearing a Rolex.
All cash, no flash, right? That's what we say.
But you know, I get it. And now that, you know, I've got a Bored Ape as my avatar, it's kind of the same thing. And it didn't start that way because it started as a way to signal that, oh, you're one of the early, techno Illuminati who's hip to this new technology. When I got my Bored Ape, I got it the day after minting it. It was, low hundreds. It was the day after they sold out, and almost overnight, my Twitter timeline, everybody I respected in tech had this monkey as their avatar. I was like, okay, this feels like punks. I'm going to go ahead and get one. And then I recommended to everybody, to go get one. Put a great big blast, kind of tongue in cheek. As your attorney, I advise you to go buy a monkey. And that was the day after. That was when you could get a Bored Ape for $200, $300. And I got one. I didn't fill a bag, which I should have. I got one. And then, you fast forward a couple of months and it switches from a status indicator that you're kind of keen on this new technology to a status indicator that you have a $250,000 JPEG. And now people who are buying into Bored Apes are very different. Keemstar bought in. You got Jimmy Fallon and Timbaland and people who don't care about money. That's not me.
Right.
When I got my Bored Ape, it was like $300 on a JPEG. Okay, I'm going to do it. That's a full day's work at the law firm.
I'll give you $600 for it right now. That's a good double up.
That is a good double up.
Hey, so let's talk about your project, specifically what you're doing.
So around August, when I'm going and trucking into my defense firm to defend against fender benders, I'm turning down a 6-figure offer for my Bored Ape and realizing, there's something going on here in NFTs that I really should try to get a piece of and be a part of and build. I've always liked the idea of building stuff, and when NFTs really clicked for me with the JPEGs and understanding how a JPEG can really have the value it brings is when I bought the Bored Ape, and I went to Discord and I connected with the Collabland bot where it reached into my wallet. It said, "Yep, you have one of these. Now all these channels are available to you." And I was like, "Wow, this isn't a JPEG. This is like a membership to a club." And these people are interesting. These people are like-minded. I don't have real life friends, at that point, and even now, really. I mean,
well, you got young kids and you're married, so no. I don't mean it like that, but basically, even if you have friends,
you didn't let me finish the sentence. It wasn't
friends,
period.
Family,
I don't have friends. Period. That wasn't a period there.
Look, I'm trying.
I was continuing saying my friends.
You got to forgive my friend here. He tends to cut people off prematurely.
I didn't cut anybody off.
Sorry, you don't have friends, Dutch. Jesus,
I will be your friend.
So you get into these like-minded groups, and I've always, that's when it really clicked that this isn't just a JPEG, But even if it was, then I kind of went back and started picking up just for the art's sake, like some of those nifty gateway ones where it's just the art. There's a guy who's dropping. Here's some alpha for your. Well, probably not going to get. It's probably going to be too late. Here's some alpha for you two. There's basically a modern Michelangelo dropping an NFT piece on niftygateway.com on Thursday.
Are you talking about the Monday? Salvador Monday?
No,
okay.
I'm talking about Rafe Grassetti.
Okay.
It's on Thursday. It's going to be about 3:30 our time. It'll be a drawing that's open to non-collectors. I think you might have to have some Nifty Gateway pieces, but you can transfer NFTs into Nifty Gateway. And the way that the Nifty Gateway drawings work is you sign up. It's a $2,000 drawing, but you don't get charged unless you win. And if you do win, you're going to be able to flip it for $10K. It's that simple. And then you're going to have to tell your grandkids 30 years from now how you sold a Rafe Grassetti for a 5X return, where it's basically like having the statue of David from Michelangelo. I mean, if Michelangelo was alive today, he'd be working in Unity, and he'd be doing this kind of thing, because this is what they're doing. He's a sculptor.
I'd rather tell my kids that I bought 10 Bitcoin at the first time. That's what I'd rather tell my grandkids.
I think that there's a decent chance that when you're talking to your grandkids, a single Rafe Grassetti might be worth more than 10 Bitcoin.
Okay, so we're talking about worth. Dutch, you're so fascinating, and we've gotten so much out of this that more than we thought we would, just from a macro standpoint.
Not more than I thought I would. I knew what we were getting ourselves.
Well, you're a poker player like me, so our standards are low. I'm kidding. So where is the liquidity coming? Let's just talk about crypto, not NFTs. where is all the liquidity coming from to crypto? It's got to be leaving something else. Now we could say that we had this massive money printing of an extra $3, $5, $10 trillion, whatever that was.
7 trillion, yeah.
Well, we do know that 30% of all the money in the history of the world has been printed in the last 2 years, right? So there's that. But when I watch crypto go up, I want to ask, hey, where's the soft spot for this? How long can this run? I mean, where is the money for crypto? Is it leaving real estate? Is it leaving bonds? What's your take?
I mean, it's a really good question. I think that what it is ultimately is it's just a conversion of man hours. That's all it is.
Okay.
That's where it's coming from. Is you spend 200 hours researching crypto. Okay, let's say you don't even buy it, but somewhere there's value that's been created in some sort of weird, abstract kind of way. Money is imaginary, and the value that we put on anything is largely just a fiction. That's a social construct between us. But what's not a fiction is that we all have limited time, and that, I think, is really what's propping up the value of everything else. So I think that's where the value kind of comes from. You can kind of say, oh, well, it comes from the code, or it comes from electricity, or it comes from other asset classes. But I think ultimately what's going on is that you're seeing an actual conversion of attention and time. So with NFTs, you got a certain number of people who are interested in it, a certain number of people who say, I'll get together and say, yeah, this Bored Ape is worth 30,000, 50,000, 100,000. At some point, the dollar values just kind of become imaginary, and it's just like,
yeah.
So that's kind of what I think is propping it up, and how far can it go? Well, it can go forever, because money is imaginary, and there's really no reason why we even have it, except just to make transactions easier and easier to identify.
Now, I understand
groups.
exactly what you're talking about, but I don't know that everybody else will. But you got to make your walk in crypto, just like remember Super Mario?
Yeah,
was the worst,
I do.
worst poker player ever. The worst, right? But he just kept getting his butt kicked, right, and losing his money. And also he said, hey, maybe I shouldn't go all in with pocket fours, three-handed.
I think that one book that can kind of get you to kind of see things differently that really helped me was a lot of the Yuval Noah Harari books. He wrote one about called Sapiens, which really made me kind of think differently about humanity as a species and how we set up our structures. And a lot of this stuff it should have come to me earlier, because I have my undergrad in sociology. Which that's really just all it is examining the social structures that we create. But it didn't really click until well after. I'd like to talk a little bit about what you were asking about, how you can spot a good NFT project. Let's drop some alpha on your users. Okay. Let's go real simple. First off, team. Okay. This is probably the most important thing, because when it comes to NFT value, you've got the art, you've got the utility, and you've got the community. Mm-hmm. And what I would say is that community is way more important than utility and way more important than art. Shitty art projects can still moon. The art doesn't matter. It's almost non-consequential to price. And some of the most successful NFT projects don't even have art. You look at Loot, or you look at the End project, which don't even have art. And they mooned. Why did they moon? Because they have a really strong community and a promise of utility. So the first thing you look at is team. You see who's behind the project, and you see if they've done successful projects before. You see if people will listen to them, and you don't want influencers and pumpers. You want builders. Mm-hmm. You go with where the builders are. You go where the artists are. I mean, artists are builders, so you go with the builders. You look what builders are minting. You look what people who created things, like a guy named D. Hoff, who created Vine. Now he's creating NFTs, and when he creates something, everyone gets on board. Some of the people who work with him, Grimplin, he creates cryptodes, and all of a sudden it just moons, and everyone's like, why did it moon? These things look ugly. Yeah, the art doesn't matter. What matters is the builder here, Grimplin. Everyone knows that he's a great builder. So everyone's going to jump on. And it's like, well, they don't have utility. It doesn't matter. Community is bigger than utility. So you look at the team, you see what they've done before, if it's not a doxed team, if it's not somebody that you can actually look up and see Twitter, and they have some sort of reputation that they're putting on the line for the drop, if it's just an image and it doesn't go out to anybody, or it does go to a Twitter that was set up last week, don't mint. Don't mint. Because even if it does go up, it's going to go straight back down. And you might make money. You might be able to make money flipping the bag to some other holder, but if the team itself isn't at least semi-doxed, where there's some reputation points on the line being wagered on the drop, that's the first indicator that it's a bail. And if it's a good team, that's the first indicator that it's going to be a mint. There's certain people in the industry that if they attach their name to the project, it's going to be a home run. You just know. So other little things that you can look at for NFT projects to kind of know what to mint and what to stay away from. Look for a terms of service. Look for a privacy policy. Scroll to the bottom, click on privacy policy, and if you can't, realize that the team doesn't know what they're doing, because there's laws in all over the world that say you have to have a privacy policy. And if they don't have a terms of service, it's probably because they don't have a company. If they don't have a company, then it's likely they didn't even dox themselves to each other. So those are like the main things. You look at the drop mechanism. I mean, a real big one is just simple typos on the website. I mean, these NFT projects are so low effort that they don't even proofread their stuff. Mm-hmm. Look at and then you can look at their smart contract. Look at the smart contract and see what they name their functions, and see if it's just a complete. This is kind of a little bit, NFT investor level 2 stuff. But eventually, if you're going to be successful in the NFT game, you're going to have to understand and learn how to look at a smart contract, mint directly from a smart contract, and track it as it's minting. So you look at the smart contract itself. One thing I like to look at is a header graphic in the smart contract itself. I think good teams who actually care about this kind of stuff are putting up, a comment of an image and who they are, and making their smart contract actually aesthetically pleasing at a base ASCII level. And then you look at their functions and see if they bothered to rename them from the Open Zeppelin library. Instead of Mint, is it called Mint a Mech? Or, you see if they're doing anything special in the smart contract where they had to do even a single line of novel code. And if they are, it means, okay, this is a little bit higher than low effort. They're doing something interesting here. So that's why Wolf Game 2 weeks ago did something kind of cool. 100x if you got in at the right time, because they actually were doing something on a technical level that no one had seen before. And it flags, it indicates these guys are actually interested in building something.
Right, and being unique about it, yeah.
Yeah. And then what do? The day of the mint, you look at the smart contract, and you look at the total supply, and you see how it's selling out. A lot of my most successful hits in the NFT space, I didn't even know about until minutes before I minted. Generally, if you're going to be full-time in the NFT space, which I am since August when I went and quit my job because I was turning down a year's salary for a JPEG, you're going to want tools. So I use IC Tools, Nansen.ai, and they track all the successful wallets, so you can see if Pranksy or Jimmy ETH is minting something. If Zeneca is minting something, you can go ahead and back run their trades. Sometimes you can kind of mid run their trades because you get in right when they're getting in. Recently, just 2 days ago, Pranksy picked up a whole bunch of art blocks, a project called, I think, Gazers. And that art blocks curated went sky high after he did it. It went from a floor of 1 ETH to 3, just because he picked up 20 or 30 of them. So you want to track those kind of wallets and kind of go with where the successful people are going, because at some level, these NFTs become valuable when people collect them. If the right people collect them, they become valuable.
Yeah, it's funny because we got the reverse on that. We've got another guest who's going to be on next week, and they actually got the Kobe Bryant Mamba watch, right? And they're making that into an NFT.
One of three. Yeah,
one of three. So that's the exact opposite. That's the collector of the NFT. Anyhow, Dutch, I just want to, before we run out of time, do you want to plug your project and how people can get a hold of you?
Yeah, so the NFT project that I'm doing now is called Mech Arcade. It's at mecharcade.com. We found some really great art. Me and a a guy I do a lot of trading with, a guy named Steve Dolly. I think you're going to have him on the podcast later on.
Yeah.
And so he was, when I tweeted that about, as your attorney, go buy a monkey, he actually took me up on it, and he bought like 10 of them. So I'm a little salty to see him, seeing that he's paying off, his mortgage with my picks, But he's somebody that I really have, I was friends with before this crazy crypto stuff, and I'm, now we, every day we were talking to each other about trading ideas and trading together and minting at the same time and doing really well. And we were saying, look, we should just do an NFT project. We understand the space and we can build some really cool things long term. There's no reason why we shouldn't. We should actually build something here. So we were on the lookout for some good art to kind of base it on. We found this. We found it in the form of the Mech Arcade mechs. A couple of Brazilian students. Two brothers put out these mech NFTs on OpenSea. They didn't really get traction, but we loved the art. We bought out the lot. Then we reached out and asked if they wanted to kind of set up this company with us. They did, and we made them full partners in this Wyoming LLC and started putting together the Solidity code. I knew some devs that could do kind of build a 10,000 generative project out of this IP. And the plan really is to, where I think that the NFT space is going to be going hard in the next few years is gaming. The plan with the Mech Arcade is to basically lean into NFTs in gaming. We're building them for interoperability. So they've got stats and full 3D assets that you can port into other gaming experiences, full commercial rights. And then we're trying to build our own, game implementations for using them, including some tokenomics, play to earn kind of stuff. And coming from a professional poker background, I love poker, but I'm really a gamer at heart. If you could play Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering and make millions of dollars in the championships, that's where I would have been playing. Poker is a fun game, but there's better games. And I look back at all the time spent on games like World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, Rust. My Steam library is filled with skins. My Warcraft bank is filled with tabs of just lost value, where I've put in thousands and thousands of man hours and can't take it with me.
Right.
And NFTs are changing that. They're changing that. I don't think people are going to be willing to put in substantial amounts of time in a game anymore in the future without being able to take value that they build.
No, it's bringing tangible value to energy and storage of energy.
Yeah. And I think that where we are is attention is the scarce, is what's scarce, and people are going to get paid for their attention. And you're going to look at these gaming environments where it's not play to earn at the expense of other people who are putting money in. It's play to earn because the game actually serves a purpose itself that you don't quite see. Crypto's kind of cool like that. I think what we're going to see in the future is people are going to load up kind of their World of Warcraft, and while they're sitting there running around in Orgrimmar, their graphics card is mining crypto, and their hard disk is connected to things like Filecoin and Sia, and they're mining Golem by contributing to some SETI project, and they don't even know it. They don't even know that they're providing real value to partners of this gaming experience. They're just enjoying the game.
Kind of like the bees don't know that they're actually moving pollen from each flower to flower.
That's right.
Same kind of thing. Dutch Boyd, I want to go on. I would just catch part two. Catch part two, everybody.
David, thanks for having me on the show. Dave, I really appreciate it. I appreciate you guys' time. I appreciate you guys' audience, and definitely check out mecharcade.com.
Yeah.
I think that we're going to be building something pretty cool. And even if you don't mint, just join our Discord, because me and my partner Steve, we have alpha calls every day where we talk about how you can make a lot of money in NFTs. And we both quit our jobs this year focusing on this full time. I've lost count of how many 5-figure days we've had.
And for those of you who are actually listening on Spotify or Apple and not watching the YouTube, I will put the Mac Arcade address in the description, so you can actually get that when you stop driving. Anyhow, Dutch Boyd, Really, Dutch Boyd is the only guest we've ever had that has actually been online and then on Zoom and then decided, you know something?
He's local. Yeah,
I
he's
live
coming
6
in. I'm
blocks
coming
from
in.
here. So he got off the Zoom call and physically he brought his butt here. And it's really great. I'm glad you did. Travis, our producer, thank you so much. Give us the raw. Okay. And that's Sticky Paws Studios. Of course, I can't do it without my co-host, my partner, Dave Hampton, Robo Recruiter. Thank you much.
Eternally grateful.
And as everybody knows, I'm David James, the Job Whisperer. And remember, everybody, get whisper.